Emma, 45, face-planted into Seattle's annual Pike Place Pottery Fair, hands flailing like a tipsy octopus. A dozen strangers gasped. Her new linen pants now sported a clay handprint from some dude's abandoned mug. Mortifying. Yet as she wobbled up, fam, that spinning wheel in corner hummed like a dare. 3 months later, her lopsided bowls, organic asymmetry, she called it, sat displayed beside masterpieces. Neighbors from community BBQs lingered her booth. Chuckling her throne, Emma's hands trembled as she hovered over spinning clay wheel, heart pounding like that time she'd tripped over her own feet, again, in front of Pike Place's judgmental fishmongers. 45 years of social stumbles had left her convinced she was a walking punchline, a human spill waiting to happen. But Clay didn't laugh. It just waited, cool and forgiving beneath her fingertips. Her first attempt collapsed like a deflated souffle. Second, third, same story. Yet each failure felt quieter, softer, as if Wheel absorbed her jagged edges. Memories surfaced, childhood summers shaping mud pies behind Grandma's house, back when messiness was allowed, even celebrated. Now, surrounded by Seattle's misty gray afternoons and community BBQs where she'd always lurked on edges, Emma realized pottery wasn't just about making bowls. It was about reshaping herself. Weeks passed. Her palms grew steadier, her posture less hunched. When flyers for local exhibition appeared, her gut clenched, but this time, she signed up. Opening night, surrounded by strangers admiring her glazed creations, Emma caught her reflection in a finished vase's curve. Not a punchline, not a spill, just a woman, slightly smudged but undeniably whole. Well, it spun her fear into something solid. And damn, did it feel good. Emma's hands trembled as she hovered over spinning clay, heart pounding like a drum solo. 45 years of avoiding crowds. Yet here she stood in a sunlit studio, sleeves rolled up, determined to wrestle fear into something beautiful. Clay splattered her apron. First attempt looked more like a pancake than a pot. A chuckle bubbled up. Maybe failure wasn't so terrifying when it was messy and real. Across room, Margot, a septuagenarian with rainbow-streaked hair, watched with a grin. First rule of pottery, fam? Embrace wobble. No formal mentorship, just a nudge here, a shared laugh there. Margot's crew, retired teachers, a barista, a former Marine, became Emma's accidental tribe. They traded glazing tips over community BBQs, where smoky ribs and lopsided mugs leveled everyone to beginners again. Weeks blurred into months. Emma's palms grew calloused, her posture steadier. Clay wheel became more than a tool. It was a compass, grounding her when old anxieties swirled. Each rotation smoothed edges, both on pots and in her chest. She signed up for a local exhibition, not to win, but to prove she could stand in a room full of strangers without crumbling. Day of show, her piece, a vase with deliberate imperfections, sat among glossy perfection. A woman paused, tracing its uneven ridges. "Feels alive," she murmured. Emma's throat tightened. Maybe she wasn't just making pottery. Maybe she was remaking herself. Rain pattered outside as she packed up, Margot tossing her a wink. No grand speeches, just wet pavement underfoot and a lightness she hadn't known since childhood. Social anxiety hadn't vanished, but now she had clay under her nails and a reason to spin forward. Emma's hands trembled as she pressed damp clay onto a spinning wheel, her knuckles whitening with stubborn determination. 45 years of avoiding crowds, of ducking out early from community BBQs, of rehearsing grocery store small talk like Shakespearean monologues. Yet here she was elbows deep in muck, daring to create something ugly before strangers. Seattle's Pike Place had been her breaking point. Face-planting into cobblestones while dodging a rogue fish-toss crowd. Classic Emma. But humiliation had curdled into rebellion. If gravity insisted on dragging her down, she'd dig her fingers into earth itself. Clay didn't judge shaky hands. It demanded force, demanded her to push back. First attempts collapsed like bad soufflés. Centering Clay was a battle of wills, one she kept losing. Yet each wobbling lump taught her control wasn't goal. Surrender was. Let spin pull her off kilter. Let thumbs carve valleys instead of walls. Her fourth bowl leaned drunkenly, its lopsided rim a middle finger to perfectionism. She snorted, flicking sludge off her apron. Maybe flaws had their own kind of balance. News of a local pottery exhibition hit like fate's elbow nudge. Submitting her work felt like volunteering for a root canal. But Emma hauled her uneven creations to venue anyway, hard jackhammering. Observers murmured over glazes, tracing cracks she'd once seen as failures. One woman, silver-haired and grinning, tapped a chipped bowl's edge. Looks like it survived a few storms. Relatable, yeah? Emma blinked. Her hands didn't shake. Clay hadn't fixed her. It had given her a fight where missteps weren't dead ends, just new shapes to explore. Later, as twilight gilded Puget Sound, she balanced a fresh lump on wheel. Spin hummed, her palms pressed down, not to conquer, but to collaborate. Fam, she thought, grinning her muddy reflection. Who knew getting dirty could feel this clean? Emma's hands trembled as she stepped into community center, her clay wheel balanced on a dolly like some sacred relic. 45 years of dodging crowds, of rehearsing grocery store small talk, and here she was, rolling into a room buzzing with Seattle's artsy fam. A skeptic near snack table, some guy in a flannel who'd scoff therapy mud, eyed her setup. Creator ignored him. She'd spent months molding her anxiety into something solid, something that couldn't crumble under a sideways glance. She set up near window, where golden hour light hit just right. Wheel hummed to life beneath her palms, wet clay spinning into possibility. No more hiding behind, I'm just a beginner. Today, her bowls, lopsided, glazed in reckless cobalt, would sit beside polished vases. Gutsy move for someone who used to rehearse voicemails. Then it happened. A kid, sticky-fingered from community barbecue ribs, pointed Emma's favorite piece. A chunky mug with a thumbprint dent she'd almost fixed. That one's got character, kid announced. Laughter rippled. Not cruel kind, but sort that loosened shoulders. Flannel guy wandered over, squinted. Huh, looks like my grandma's teapot, if she'd fought a bear. She grinned. One though. Someone snapped a pic. By midnight, her wonky mug was all over local feeds, Seattle Honest Art trending beside shots of her mid-laugh, clay smeared on her cheek like a war paint streak. Strangers slid into DMs. How'd you start? My hands shake too. Even flannel guy mumbled something about signing up for classes. Emma packed up her wheel, its base gritty with dried earth. Life's worth capturing, she thought, not in pixels, but in fingerprints pressed deep. Outside, fireflies winked over barbecue pits. For once, noise of crowd didn't sting. It sounded like spin of her wheel, steady, alive, shaping what came next. Emma's hands, once stiff with hesitation, now moved with quiet certainty around spinning clay. That first wobbly bowl, lopsided, cracked, had been her silent rebellion against fear. But weeks became months, her fingers memorizing curves, her breath syncing with wheel's rhythm. Seattle's drizzle couldn't dampen what fire inside her grew. Each pinch of clay smoothed edges of old anxieties. Community Center's pottery exhibition loomed. Emma almost balked, 45 and flaunting imperfections, but she hauled in her pieces anyway. Mugs with thumbprint handles, vases shaped like laughter. Strangers lingered her booth. How'd you? They'd ask, and Emma, surprising herself, guided their hands over clay. Murmuring, start where it feels heavy. Odd habit emerged. She gifted pots to neighbors, hiding them on doorsteps like ceramic ninja. Block BBQs got louder. Her creations passed around holding potato salad or stories. Even Pike Place vendors, who'd witnessed her faceplant, now wave her over. Emma, your glaze is chef's kiss. Clay wheel, once just a tool, became her compass. Spinning not just bowls, but connections. Fear hadn't vanished. It just met its match in something messier, truer. So here's your nudge, fam. Sink hands into what scares you. Squeeze it into shape.